Joel, welcome to the city family.
Sure, sweet. Thank you.
All right, item number 5 is an informational presentation on the Times Mirror Square project.
Yes, I'll invite the team to come up and introduce themselves. We wanted to bring this to the commission. Very important project for downtown Los Angeles, the Times Mirror complex, the proposed rehabilitation. I don't believe the project in its full has been brought to the commission prior. And just to note, it's historic cultural monument number 1174.
Linda, for the record, for the presenters speaking today, could you please have the microphones close to you so that we could record for audio? Thank you.
Brenda, how much time do you need?
Sorry.
How much time do you need?
We're hoping for 25 minutes.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Melissa. Okay. We can rearrange. Wait a minute. Yeah. I'll move. Sorry. Here we go. Commissioners and friends and colleagues. My name is Brenda Levin and Associates Architects. We are the architects for the historic preservation component of Times Mirror Square. And we'll walk you through the project today of where we are to date. And at the end, be happy to answer any questions. But I want to introduce the rest of our team. Andrea Rawlings with Levin and Associates, who's the project architect. Our distinguished executive architect, Rocky Rockefeller, Gabriel Ramirez, and Chris Daubert. We're sharing this project together. Barbara Liu from Francis Cray's office, Jeff Caldwell from Wisjeni Elcester, and Teresa Grimes, who I'm sure you all know, who wrote the historic structures report for the Times Mirror Square. Our team also includes several conservators who are working on specific aspects of the building, and that includes Casey Restoration, Donna Williams, Silver Lake Conservation, and Zabala Conservation. I'm working various aspects. I'd like to start with just reminding you all of what, that's a little small, the 3 buildings that constitute Times Mirror Square. The picture on the left is 1945. The 3 buildings are Times North, 1935, Gordon Kaufman. The Plant Building, which is a combination of 2 stories by Gordon Kaufman and 2 stories by Roland, and referred to as the Mirror Building, 1948, Roland Crawford. Part of Teresa's effort was to define the character-defining features, both the primary character-defining features and the secondary. In the next few diagrams indicate what is considered primary and secondary. You'll notice that the Globe lobby, left-hand side of the screen in Times North, is probably the most historic element in the 3 buildings, and the Times South lobby as well. On the upper floors, just the 4th and 5th level have various components of historic fabric, mostly the corridor system and the stairs. But what was called the auditorium on the 5th level, which is blue in the left-hand image, is considered primary historic fabric. So we've been working on the elevations of the buildings all around the 3 historic buildings and making some modifications based on the historic drawings that we have and the program intent. On the left-hand side of Times North, where we had an A, we're saying create the owl entry off of the 1st and Spring Street corner. The Owl Pharmacy did have a store there, and it formerly was accessible from First Street. We're reopening that storefront and extending it down to grade because it had been modified. So we're returning it to its original condition. The item C is the removing of the metal screens that were put up at some unknown time to restore the glazing. And then B is a new retail entry off of the Paseo corner, and we'll talk a little bit about the Paseo. What you saw in imagery is the 20-story new residential building that is being built where the former existing Chandler building and garage are. So as we walk around the corner to Spring Street, we've indicated that everything on the Times North building, Spring Street elevation, is remaining as historic intent and in its existing condition. At the plant building, we're introducing 2 new roll-up garage doors for loading. There was one on Spring Street. We're adding a second, and we're also raising them to access a loading dock. Otherwise, the only additions are to the glazing. Formerly, if you recall, if you walk by the street, Spring Street now, there are these sort of bubble glazing introduced to when the cafeteria was built out and the plant was no longer operational in terms of the newspaper distribution. And a new entry in the middle to a hopefully supermarket. And then Times South, we've introduced a new entry into a potential retail space, which was formerly a glazed opening. On Spring Street, we've added a new entry, again, into retail component and a new ADA entry to access the change in elevation of the floor from the lobby. The other elements, a roll-up door and some vents for mechanical, are existing and being restored. And then probably most dramatically, the west elevation, which is now completely encapsulated by the Chandler building and formerly encapsulated by a 2-story building original to the Times, is the introduction of a new entry at what we're calling the Paseo, which is going to be a pedestrian street between the historic buildings and the new residential buildings, a new entry that ties into the elevator system in the new residential tower into the Globe lobby. And the complete new facade for the plant building, which didn't exist, which has always been covered by other structures. Again, entries into what hopes to be a supermarket on the ground floor, second floor, third floor, with a walkway and access to more commercial space, and the 4th floor as well, 4th floor amenity roof terrace. On Times South, we've added a new entry into the market because the market extends through the plant building and through Times South, and a compatible recreation of the Paseo elevation. So we have now walked around the entire facades of all 3 buildings. But what we want to do is remind you of the work that was done previously in terms of demolition. In 1937, there was demolition that impacted the west elevation of the Times North building, but it's important to note the original level 5 terrace, because we are returning the building to incorporate the terraces both on the west side and on the east side. Upper right is the additions that were added. This is an image from 2008. The additions, one was, we call it the Buffy Chandler room, and the other is a part of the conference area of the level 5 auditorium. And of course, you all know that the Chandler building is being removed, but this image on the right is to really remind you of the impact to the historic building with that construction. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Caldwell at Wisjenny. We've done a lot of testing on the limestone, sort of riding by. I'm sure you can see the deterioration of the major historic fabric on the building, and he's going to walk you through with Jenny's presentation.
Thank you.
Jeff,
Brenda.
I'll advance for you
Okay.
if you like.
All right, these next few slides will simply focus on the building enclosure specific to the limestone cladding elements and the stucco cladding at the Times South of the newer building. The photographs that we have here on the screen are a brief overall reflection of the existing condition of the limestone cladding at the upper elevation of the north building. There's a good bit of distress created by some aggressive maintenance and cleaning attempts many years ago that is now generating a tremendous amount of deterioration of the underlying steel supports for the upper cladding panels that generally are focused along the signage within the stone at those upper elevations. We'll talk about that. Building and the south building, we performed a series of cleaning trials on small areas and inconspicuous locations to establish an appropriate process that will be introduced into the construction documents so that the elevations or the cladding locations where the limestone is in good condition but just showing its age on the surface, we will introduce cleaning efforts to remove that soiling at that stone surface. The next two slides are a reflection of typical drawing sheets. There are two drawing sheets that we're presenting today that are comprised of a much larger drawing package. And through these documents, we're outlining the typical repairs for the various conditions of distress or light deterioration at the limestone cladding. So you can see in the darker shading areas at the upper portion, those were the focus of the more aggressive maintenance and cleaning many decades ago. And so those darker highlights, so to speak, are indicating each individual stone panel what type of repair is needed to that panel. Here you can see, I believe, the Buffy Chandler addition in the dark shading. That will be recreated because when that addition was installed, we believe that the original limestone cladding was removed to allow for that addition at that time. So we will be either sourcing new limestone for this area or using existing limestone cladding from other locations to this area. And that is the opposite elevation, the west elevation. Thank you, Brenda. And so again, much larger effort once the Brera building is removed and the work to place back the limestone cladding at that location. And now for the last slide on the enclosure or the cladding element. The existing stucco cladding is a direct applied assembly at the west elevation of the mirror building, and there are varying degrees of deterioration and distress at that specific location. And so the approach that the team is taking is to remove the existing stucco assembly and install a more contemporary assembly, a 3-coat stucco system that will be, one, anchored better into the substrate wall assembly, and then two, perform in a more durable long-term manner.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
So one of the great features of the building that's pretty invisible are these triangle windows. We were very excited when we were able to get close to them up on the fifth level terrace. So you see the outline in red represents the two buildings that were built on the Spring Street elevation that are being removed. Everything in the darker gray with respect to the triangle windows exist only up to the elevation of the roofs of those buildings. And we believe that they don't exist beyond, again, as Jeff said, the limestone was removed. We believe the triangle windows were removed as well. So we are replacing those and, we're extending them. We're replacing them on the west elevation, which they mostly don't exist. We engaged a firm called Acquire, which does 3D photography. So what you see here is a representation of what's left of the existing triangle windows, and you see them in plan as well. They're really quite dramatic, and we intend, Barbara will, from Francis Gray's office, will tell you about how we're going to light those from the interior so they really have a presence. The front doors on First Street, this is a picture of Norman and Harry Chandler. You'll notice that there are crests on the glass doors. There's a lot of representation in the building, both the murals and the crests, about what the LA Times was interested in those days, beyond newspaper, but basically the invention of various technologies from the day that are now were incorporated into these crests. Again, we had Acquire do three-dimensional modeling of ones that existed. Sorry, I'll go back. And the ones on the upper part of the storefront do exist, but on the lower part of the storefront, they don't exist. And so we are hoping to recreate medallions, crests, on the lower part and install them so it returns to the historic integrity of the building. And if any of you know great bronze casters, please let us know. One of the main features of the lobby, the Globe lobby, is of course the Globe. We're going to talk a little bit about the restoration of the Globe, but these are some images in the middle of some cleaning trials by Zavala Partners. She has restored all of the Ballin murals that we have worked on, including Griffith Observatory and now the LA Times building. On the right, upper right, shows the crests continuous on the storefront on First Street. And in the bottom right, you all recall that there's a clock in the tower on First Street, and the neon is mostly gone, broken, or non-operational. So the slide on the right shows a reproduction of the neon. We took one letter. The letter on the left is the existing, the letter on the number on the left is existing 8, and the number on the right is a replica. So we've been able to get really close identification for the numbers and also clarity on the temperature of the neon to be consistent throughout. So the Globe, as the major feature of the building, has gone through many iterations and restorations. In 1934, when the building opened, the Globe looked like a globe that would sit on your desk or in your school with representations of blue ocean and different colors for continents and countries. In the 60s and 70s, the Globe was actually removed from the site and refinished. And the dark seas background were painted white, and the artist was Mary Sheridan. And the continents were painted a single color, and they had their names printed on them, but no designation of the individual countries. But there are also black, very thin lines that showed where all the various LA Times bureaus were around the country. So it's interesting to look at that. And then in 1981, Mary Sheridan was consulted again for the centennial celebration of the Times building. And the current scheme was refurbished. The white of the seas was remained from the 60s, but she added a layer to the continents to describe the individual countries. Now, obviously, those countries have all changed and modified, and some of the continents are peeling off the globe, and a lot of the paint is in disrepair. So these are some of the images that are we've looked at, and you can see where the paint is failing, where there's some holes in the globe itself, and basic delamination of many of the continents. We did some testing, or we're going to do some more testing to determine whether the continents could be repainted, and the type of paint that was used doesn't allow itself to be stripped and repainted. So what we have done, and in consultation with Teresa in terms of consistency with the Secretary of the Interior guidelines, we're returning it to the 1960s palette, which is a single continent color and not the articulation of the individual countries, because obviously they will continue to change. Um, and we will most likely need to remove the continents, trace them, and create new versions out of a thin plexi or metal and paint them a single color. So we're basically returning it to the 1960s visual uh, identification of the globe. I'm going to turn it to Barbara Liu from Francis Cray's office to talk a little bit about the lighting, and I think you'll see that the building is going to be quite spectacular at night. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you. For our lighting, we integrate our lighting to the building. We work closely with the Levin to design this building. So at the same time, we also consider the historical building. We also need to think about the installation and also the circuiting everything. So we do the study very carefully. We think for the typical part, we strongly suggest to do the mock-up to test the effect also for this kind of the installation thing. During our study, we use the lighting software to do the calculation to make sure the lighting effect uh, is, is correct, and also the fixed selection um, it work well for this building. Um, we select the fixture to make sure the effect and the work efficiently, but also have a good beam control to make sure have the effect, but no glare issue for the people surrounding the building.
Do you want me to go to the next?
In the diagram,
Next one? No? Okay.
in the diagram, we show the different layer of the lighting. So we want to emphasize the central part of the elevation. So the both part light will be soft. So from this diagram, you can see we have the lighting for the column, for the column lighting with the linear fixture. We also for the entry part, we have the pointer source to emphasize entry. And the second level, we have the lighting to light up the surface of the column. But for both sides, we have the fixture to light the inner surface of the column. So the central part and the both side part will have that kind of the contrast to show make the center part prominent. We also have the adjustable fixture to light the sculpture figure to make them prominent. So for this Spring Street, we have the same strategy for the ground light, for the column lighting touching the ground, but we also have the adjustable fixture to light the inner source of the column to bring the soft light, but to show the column rhythm. So the top part, we also emphasize the uh, figure and also the inner surface of the column. this is the diagram for the paseo elevation. So for the ground floor, here we have the sconce to provide the lighting. This sconce selection, which is we have the similar feature as the other decorative fixture. This fixture will be also decoration, but also bring the light to the pedestrian street. So this is also part of the functional lighting. For the level 2, we have the same strategy, like to have the lighting to apply the inner side of the column. Yeah, we also have the surface-mounted adjustable fixture to light this figure. They can be adjustable, so they can aim well to the figure to show accurately. So this page will show the global lobby lighting. For those decorative fixture we want to restore, we replace part of the lamp to. We want to still uh, show the same effect as original. Also, we want to have some original effect and also create the atmosphere of the previous. So some of the fixture we're gonna replace the lamp. Some of them we will do the custom. So we have the separate package to describe each type of the fixture, the requirements for custom or replace for the fixture, such as color temperature, exact lamp use, and also the selection of the lamp that are used for each type of the decorative fixture.
Thank you, Barbara. So I think you can see that the building's going to be quite spectacular when it's lit, and imagine the LA Times also with the neon and all of that light that the fixtures that Barbara just mentioned and walked you through. We spent a bit of time with the electrical engineer and Francis Gray thinking about how they attach to the building with the least impact to the limestone. So that is part of the challenge, because there aren't a lot of ledges in the building, but there are a lot of decorative elements that you don't even see that are now going to be very visible in terms of cast carvings. So last, the globe lobby itself, obviously the circle in the middle exists. It's marble, multicolored marble, and the green marble that extends into the elevator lobby. The two wings, left and right, are now carpeted and are auxiliary spaces. So what we've done is create a new pattern that is based on the circle of the globe lobby, but extended out to the Paseo entry, which is the corridor on the bottom left of the screen. And that is designed to be marmoleum. So it's a textured marbled linoleum to replicate marble texture. This is the corridor from the Paseo, the new corridor. Middle image on the left are the doors from the Paseo. And then we're harvesting marble from the building, the first floor of the building, which is the middle photo on the right, and reusing it in this corridor system to bring back some of the original fabric from the building. And lastly, this slide is a view from the Paseo into that corridor before you turn left into the auxiliary spaces of the globe lobby. So that Paseo is going to be a very vibrant, active area and connect First and Second Street and to the metro station that's being built on Second. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions. Our team is available as well.
Thank you. I'm quite glad to see it's in such capable hands. It's such an important building. I do have a couple questions. And I think the big one in my mind is obviously the building is being very well taken care of. But I'm wondering about the new building. It's sort of, there's this ghosted 22-story residential building in a couple of your slides. Where does that sit relative to the Times Tower and the site plan? Is that at the street line, or is it held back to give priority to the Times Tower?
The front elevation on First Street is held back. a bit. It obviously sits where the Chandler building and the garage
Right.
are now. But the Paseo is, somebody help me, how wide is it? 30 feet wide. So that's a pedestrian walk, let's call it. All of the ground floor on both the historic buildings for the Times North and the plant are intended to have a retail component to it. On the new towers, also ground floor is all retail, parking above, and then about 1,000 residents.
So I guess my remaining part of that question, Brenda, is how far is a bit?
How far is it baked?
Is,
Very
is,
baked.
is a bit?
Yeah, it's very baked. Very baked.
How far is it set back?
Oh, how far is it
I
set
mean,
back?
you're doing a really wonderful job in terms of restoration of
Right,
Times
right,
Mirror
right.
buildings, the lighting, all those elements.
Right.
But how visible does that become from?
Rocky? Was that Rocky? Okay, we're checking. 15 to 20 feet. It's tight.
That seems a little bit shallow. Just, comment to staff to the extent we have any input in that in terms of context. I think 15 or 20 feet, especially, is. Okay. Other questions, Commissioners?
Sure, this is Commissioner Kennard. Thank you so much. And I just have some just kind of logistical questions and just curious. So Jeff, I wanted to ask about the limestone, and thank you so much. That was really interesting. Were there any other similar projects that you were drawing upon in terms of the restoration of the limestone?
Not necessarily similar projects. Initially, when we think about when we see limestone, the first material or quarry source is the ubiquitous to a Midwesterner, Indiana limestone. This limestone is not Indiana limestone. It has a lot of inclusions in it that make it somewhat different. We've sourced samples from Alabama and Tennessee, and we anticipate those to be consistent with a match on that. There are not a tremendous amount of limestone clad buildings of this era in downtown Los Angeles, and this one certainly sticks out. And so, the personally from the team that's involved on this project, the closest similar project types or building types are from the Chicago area. I hope that answers.
Yeah, no, thank you. But we're going to be trendsetters, right? We got limestone in LA.
Yes.
Spread the word.
Yes.
So one other question, and that has to do with the globe. I don't know, Brenda, maybe you could answer that. Because when we were touring the building when it was designated, we were wondering what happened to the globe. And so could you reassure us that it's okay and in safekeeping?
As a matter of fact, Onni, the developer, and I should have mentioned that in the very beginning, has already installed a new motor so the globe spins beautifully. We've observed it. It was malfunctioning when the additional layers were added to the globe for the indication of the countries, which changed the axis and the ability for it to turn smoothly. So it does now.
Okay, thank you.
Richard Barron, I'm just totally impressed by the sort of level of restoration going on in this building. I had no idea that it was going to be such a huge restoration project, and I'm really glad to see you're involved because we know that you know how to do it.
We push.
Yeah, but it's going to be a wonderful looking. I mean, it's always been a handsome building. It's one of my favorite buildings in Los Angeles, and I think the work that you're doing is going to really make it a shine and be terrific. So thank you very much, and I'm glad you got hired by the owner. So
Thank you.
thank you. I'm very impressed with your presentation.
Thank you. But I would like to say that RKA, who is our partner on this project, is really doing a magnificent job on all the integration of the infrastructure. As you can imagine, it all needs to be replaced. There's new seismic retrofit to the building, and all new mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So we have really collaborated and have created a joint set of documents that will serve the project well.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your team.
This is Commissioner Canner. I think this has the potential to be our Rockefeller Center. At the same time period.
What? No pun intended.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know your background. Are you really a Rockefeller? But there's a little bit of confusion in my mind about the names that you've chosen for some of these buildings, like the Paseo. Obviously, your intent or the intent of the developer is to make it a retail space. But I think it would be nice to acknowledge that it was a loading dock, that it was where the papers went out. If there was somehow a way to bring that name into the Paseo, loading dock sounds kind of,
Yeah, the loading dock is on Spring, Diane. So, but the Paseo has now the entry to Globe Lobby, which it never did, and hopefully a supermarket. So all of that elevation will be glazed.
Okay, well, see, that's part of the confusion then.
Okay, so do you want me to go back for a second to that elevation of the Paseo? Okay. Slow loading. Okay, so prior to the Chandler building, there was a two-story building always against the west elevation, but this is the Paseo elevation now, so we have glazing into Times North and hopefully a retail space, and then a supermarket along the plant building. So the loading occurred on the Spring Street elevation for the newspaper. This was always a blank facade. So I'll just go back to the Spring Street elevation. The two brown doors are the roll-up doors, one of which was a loading dock, but all of the other glazed openings, the BB, were actually the truck bays where the smaller trucks went in and the newspapers got loaded and distributed throughout the city. So the Spring Street is in a sense returning to what it was originally before the Times implemented changes to that elevation and created a cafeteria there. So eliminated the loading docks or the truck bays.
Will that be an extension of the Paseo? Will that be and what's the function
It
of
does
that?
not extend to the Paseo. Yes, so these openings, new openings, hopefully the supermarket goes through from the Paseo to Spring Street, so you'll be able to access either on the Paseo side or the Spring Street side. So it should be active. It will be active. Does that make sense?
Yeah, right. So it'll be how many stories?
Well, the building is 4 stories.
And that's,
It's existing, totally existing.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Also, you refer to the Chandler building, which, I think in the public's mind, that's the Pereira building, right?
Well, either architect or Otis, pick one. But yes, it is the Pereira building.
Right. Okay. If you're going to call it the Chandler building, which, the whole complex is really, Chandler property, you should know that Dorothy Chandler was not Buffy Chandler. It was Buff Chandler.
Yeah, she was Dorothy Chandler.
Well,
Right.
if people called her on the phone and asked for Buffy Chandler, the secretaries knew they did not know who she was.
She was a strong woman.
Her real name was Buff, was not Buffy. That's a minor point. But
Thank you.
okay, and I want to ask about the elevator doors in the lobby. Are those also part of the restoration plan?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Great. And also on the interior, what is happening to the Norman Chandler room, which I think was on the 4th floor? Well, no, I don't think it's the auditorium. It was on the Spring Street side when we toured the building.
It's in the old, it's in the addition. It's in the.
It's the addition.
Oh,
It's
it
the
was in the addition.
So those are being removed, both of those.
But wasn't there a Norman Chandler room in the old, that was like a conference room and it was at the front?
He had an office on the corner of First and Spring. There's nothing intact from that.
There's
interior.
nothing intact. And then the auditorium, we didn't see any renderings of what's happening to the auditorium.
Still in process.
Still in process. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Richard Byrne, I have another question on the west elevation Paseo drawing that you have, which is that one. It would be interesting for me as an architect to see like how you show the new building on the south elevation and also on the north elevation. It would be interesting to see the mass of the building. You actually show the Caltrans building beyond the Times building. But it would be interesting in this if you had a dotted line that showed the profile of the new building. Because I have a sense of it in the narrow version, but I'm assuming that this thing is a monster that goes, how far does it go?
All the way. First to second.
That's why you didn't show it, right?
Yeah, I think that's the important thing for any sort of consideration on this. You're doing an excellent job on the Times Mirror building, but there is a context here, and that context does impact the historic character of the site. And I think that needs to be fairly shown in all your presentations. I mean, the fact that it's set back 20 feet, the fact there's a plinth and a tower, it should be reflected in how it's presented.
Well, even a site plan, well, I guess, oh no, you do show it in the ground level site plan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big monster.
Well, I think the
It's a
architect.
big building. And the
It's a big
Paseo is the area that you're calling the Paseo is the space between the two buildings.
Correct.
And is that going to be like a public street?
Yeah, no,
But not
pedestrian only.
vehicles going there?
No, pedestrian only.
Pedestrian street?
And again, I think you use some really interesting, very well represented images of the lobby and the entry from the Paseo.
Right.
It would be interesting to see how that Paseo feels with a 22-story building 30 feet away from the Times Mirror building.
Right.
I think there's some context issues that do need to be addressed before we can sort of say it's all
there
good.
is a 4-story or 1, 2, 3,
Oh,
4, 5-story building mass, right, at the base, a base of this thing, and then it's set back, what, 10 feet or something for the tower? On the Paseo side, it's actually set, it's not symmetrical, it's asymmetrical, pushing more to the west, right?
No, I think
Doesn't-
actually
does that look
yeah, I think
symmetrical?
the west is set back. a little bit.
It's slightly asymmetrical to the west,
Right.
which is helpful probably to the Paseo, because you may not, in certain places, you may not even know it's there.
Well, I think the sensitivity, at least, to creating a belt force at the height of the Times North building and then setting back the tower at least gives air and breathing room to the.
Yeah. No, I think that, and how they line up with the base of the Times building,
Exactly.
I think is a positive thing.
Right.
Lambert, are we going to have any review of the new building?
No.
Well, that's simple.
And to be clear, Commissioner, if I'm remembering correctly, there are 2 towers that are part of
Yes.
the new construction.
Correct.
Correct. So when we talk about one, there's a north and a south tower. And because that was ultimately excluded from the scope of the designation, it would not come to the CHC.
Okay, again, I think in terms of communicating the project, context is important. Context is important, not only in terms of understanding it, but also in terms of the historic. I mean, you're doing a lot of work on that west elevation.
Right.
And if I'm not walking down the Paseo, I don't know anything about it. I think I am a little bit concerned, but we have no control over, a 22-story tower 30 feet away. But I think context is important. Commissioner?
Are you saying that there's 2 towers?
Yes.
I believe one is 37 stories and 53. Is that accurate?
Where's the second tower?
On 2nd Street. So the Paseo runs 1st to 2nd. We're showing you the tower that faces 1st. And then beyond that, towards 2nd is another tower.
I see. Behind the back street, on 2nd Street, there's a second tower by the same developer.
It's 2nd and the Paseo. I mean, they're like this.
I see.
Do you know if the podium is continuous?
The podium is continuous, yes. And it is all designated as retail.
So you understand the confusion.
Where are you at in terms of scheduling on all this?
Excellent question. There needs to be hazard mitigation in the Times buildings. The demo permit, Rocky and Chris help me, the demo permit for the Pereira building and garage, but it's an RTI, right? So that's ready to go. We don't have a date yet in terms of when that demolition will occur because the hazard mitigation needs to occur first.
Is there an overall schedule for the project?
No.
Okay. Right. Seeing no other comments, again, appreciate your time.
Need to open public comment though?
Oh, you're right. Good point. Let's open it for public comment. No?
Don Jefferson City Planning. If you would like to give public comment on item number 5 on the agenda, please use the raise hand button. If you've dialed in telephonically, please press *9 at this time. Richard Schave, you have 1 minute. Richard Schave, please unmute yourself.
This is Richard Schave. I'm a private citizen. Commissioners, good morning. This project is polluted by public corruption, and I assert that you cannot give it a fair assessment and use your powers to ask City Attorney Hydee Feldstein Soto to reverse the project approvals. I produced the Times Mirror Square landmark nomination, and this commission sent that nomination to Planning and Land Use Management. When the nomination reached PLUM, Councilmember Jose Huizar rewrote it to exclude the 1973 Pereira edition, which Onni Group is seeking to demolish. Huizar has since pled guilty to federal racketeering charges. If Huizar had not told Onni Group they could demolish part of the Times Mirror Square, they would have been forced to come up with a creative solution for the Pereira building. Remember what Jose Huizar did to Parker Center, this commission's landmark nomination. Demolished it for nothing, the city's redevelopment project shelved after Huizar was arrested. I do not want to see the Norman Chandler Pavilion, a character-defining addition by William Pereira to the east shoulder of the Kaufman building, destroyed.
Please wrap up your comments. Thank you.
Susanna, thank you.
Hello.
Thank you. It's Richard.
We have no other callers at this time.
All right, let's close public comment. Commissioner Barron has a comment or question.
Yeah. Brenda, I'm looking at the picture of where they're demolishing the previous building. And on top of the roof,
Oops, sorry, going the wrong way.
if you blow that up, yeah, that one. I don't know, can you blow things up on this?
No.
Well, you can see that little, it looks like a little, well, it looks like a man. I don't know if he's riding a horse or a dragon or.
No, that's the old Times building across the street.
Are you talking to the guy with the sledgehammer or the jackhammer? I don't do this. Good. Is it that one, Richard? The one on the left-hand photo?
The left-hand photo up on the roof of the Times building at the front, there's, it looks like a statue of some kind.
I think it's a person. Yeah,
You think it's a person doing work?
yeah, there's no statue up there.
Okay, thank you.
Can you restore the person, please? Okay. Again, thank you for your excellent work on the project. Thank you for the excellent presentation, and thank you for including context in your presentations.
Will do. Thank you. Good luck.
Okay.
Best of luck.
All right. Next item on our agenda is Disabled American Veterans Birmingham Hospital, Chapter 73. Lambert?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Lambert Giesinger with the Planning Department. Item 6 is the monument determination for the Disabled American Veterans Birmingham Hospital, Chapter 73. The staff recommendation is that the Commission declare the property an historic monument and adopt the staff report findings. I will remind the Commission that this was a council-initiated nomination, which directed our office to write the nomination, and Max Loader on our staff is now going to present that.
Max, how much time do you need? 15 minutes? Okay. Okay.
Did you submit a speaker? Yeah, you'll present after Matt.
Linda, 15 minutes?
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Max Loader with the Office of Historic Resources. The item before you is the Historic Cultural Monument nomination for the Disabled American Veterans Birmingham Hospital, Chapter 73, located at 6543 and 6565 North Corbin Avenue in Woodland Hills. This nomination was initiated by City Council in 2022. Disabled Americans Veterans Birmingham Hospital Chapter 73 is a rehabilitation and recreational club facility consisting of a clubhouse building, a lawn area, swimming pool and pool house, an outdoor seating area with auxiliary structures, several ancillary structures, and utility structures on the east or front of the lot. The approximately 4.5 acre property is located on the west side of North Corbin Avenue between the Los Angeles River and Hamlin Street in the neighborhood of Woodland Hills in Los Angeles. The subject property served as the headquarters of Chapter 73 for 72 years until it closed its doors in May 2022. It is currently unoccupied. Disabled American Veterans Birmingham Hospital Chapter 73 meets one of the historic cultural monument criteria. It exemplifies significant contributions to the broad cultural, economic, or social history of the nation, state, city, or community for its association with the Disabled American Veterans, a national organization that empowers and advocates for disabled veterans through its state and local chapters, such as the subject property. The subject property played an important role in the rehabilitation and support of disabled war veterans in Los Angeles's western San Fernando Valley from its opening in 1950 to its closure in 2022. Growth in the San Fernando Valley remained relatively flat until the decades following World War II. The great need for housing a growing population, including veterans and their families, necessitated development in the area. In the 5 years between 1945 and 1950, the population of the valley doubled to just over 400,000 before it nearly doubled again to 700,000 over the course of the 1950s. Orange groves and ranches gave way to tract houses at a rapid speed. Aerial photographs from 1928 through 1976, seen on this slide, demonstrate the area's rapid post-World War II transformation from small settlements surrounded by large tracts of farmland along dirt roads to an area of booming automobile-oriented suburbs. In 1947, a group of disabled veterans formed the DAV Chapter 73 at the War Department's Birmingham General Hospital in Van Nuys. The chapter's former site is now part of Lake Balboa. Approximately 671,000 of the 16 million Americans who served in World War II had been wounded, with about 300,000 of them requiring long-term hospitalization and rehabilitation. Birmingham General Hospital opened in 1944 to help meet the demand for medical treatment and rehabilitation for those veterans with disabilities who were making their homes in the valley. The federal government shut down the hospital's operations in 1950 and relocated many patients to the Veterans Affairs hospitals in Long Beach and West Los Angeles. The subject property was initially acquired in 1946 as an unimproved lot. In 1950, Chapter 73 commissioned architect James E. Dolina to begin development of the lot with the construction of the clubhouse. After the clubhouse's completion, Chapter 73 moved its operations to the subject property. The goal was to provide a space for camaraderie and rehabilitation for Valley veterans who could not make the trip to Long Beach or West Los Angeles following Birmingham's hospital's closure. James E. Dolina was an already prominent Los Angeles-based architect. Born in the Russian Empire in 1888, Dolina immigrated to the United States in 1905. He trained as an architect and a painter before settling in Los Angeles, where he had an illustrious career mainly designing West Los Angeles homes commonly styled in the Spanish colonial, French Regency, Monterey, and Hollywood Regency styles. Located at the northwest portion of the lot, the clubhouse building is the main structure on the site. Irregular in plan, the clubhouse is of concrete block construction with stucco cladding and rolled asphalt roofing, much of which is topped with mechanical equipment. The north-facing rear facade of the entire clubhouse building features an unarticulated wall with several sets of wood or vinyl windows. The original clubhouse was constructed in 1950 in the mid-century modern architectural style. In 1955, an addition was built on its western facade and enlarged in 1959. An addition to the clubhouse eastern facade was constructed in 1963, followed by a minor enlargement of the western addition in 1969. The eastern addition was expanded in 1973, and in 2002, a large southward expansion of the original clubhouse was completed. This is the lobby that leads to the interior of the clubhouse. Looking north, the doors on the left lead into the banquet hall, and the doors on the right lead to the bar. These images show the interior of the banquet hall. A central beam runs east to west along the ceiling, supported by minimalist rectangular columns. There is a stage at the south wall and a fireplace on the west wall. This is the bar addition and game room that were added to the clubhouse in 1963 and 1973. The south facade of the bar has a cluster of 5 bays separated by 6 rectangular concrete block pilasters inset with decorative concrete screen blocks with windows behind. The bar room has a long bar on the north side and a fireplace clad in floor-to-ceiling stone veneer on the west wall. The south wall has rectangular wood pilasters between the south-facing windows. These images show the game room off of the bar area. The central green space south of the clubhouse building has a lawn, 2 mature trees, and a tree set in a circular planter with a memorial plaque at its base. At the southeast corner of the green space is a plaque set in a freestanding rock wall that reads, "In memory of our departed comrades," beneath the seal of the DAV. A stationary artillery piece is displayed on the lawn. Next to the artillery piece is a Blue Star Memorial marker on a pole. To the green space is a rectangular swimming pool constructed in 1952 with a concrete deck. Adjacent to the pool is the pool house constructed in 1954 in the mid-century modern architectural style. The central outdoor seating and picnic area is located to the west of the pool area and south of the clubhouse building. To the west and south of the seating area are 2 auxiliary structures constructed in the late 1990s. The Disabled American Veterans was founded in 1920 as the Disabled American Veterans of the World War in Cincinnati, Ohio, by a group of injured and disabled World War I veterans, including Judge and former infantry captain Robert S. Marks. Elected the organization's first leader in 1921, Marks is credited with expanding the organization's membership and helping to establish a nationwide network of chapters, and for contributing to the successful push for Congress to create the Veterans Bureau, a precursor to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Renamed as the Disabled American Veterans during World War II, the DAV is a national, congressionally chartered organization with a mission to empower veterans to lead high-quality lives with respect and dignity. In 1944, it established a National Service Officer, or NSO, training program to create a corps of knowledgeable professionals to advocate on behalf of veterans. World War II and the Korean War saw hundreds of thousands of military personnel return home wounded. increasing the importance of the DAB and its NSO program. From its inception, Chapter 73 served multiple roles. Its first purpose was to assist in the physical rehabilitation of local disabled veterans, particularly those with paraplegia and other spinal cord injuries. The new site initially relied on its swimming pool to serve this role. In 1964, after several sizable expansions of the clubhouse building to accommodate additional services and activities for its veterans, the National DAB recognized Chapter 73 as a fully fledged rehabilitation center. Chapter 73 was equally a place for socialization and recreation, with the main goal being to help ease veterans' transitions back into civilian life. Some activities for veterans including contributing to the chapter's monthly publication, The Breeze, attending or organizing events and fundraisers, vocational training, and volunteering to clean and maintain the grounds. Additionally, the space welcomed the veterans' families who frequently participated in the chapter's activities. From its opening up to its closure, Chapter 73 also used its site as a community center. It raised money by opening its doors to the public, renting out its land and facilities to various local groups for a variety of activities and fundraising, making it a longtime focal point of the Southwest Valley. To recap, the need to support the growing number of World War II and Korean War veterans in the Valley provided the impetus for the establishment of the Disabled American Veterans Birmingham Hospital Chapter 73. Over its 72 years as a facility for rehabilitation, recreation, and camaraderie, the subject property has served multiple generations of disabled veterans and their families. Additionally, the subject property has played an important role as a community center for Woodland Hills and the Southwest Valley. The site can be remembered for its firm legacy as an anchor of the Southwest Valley and for supporting the National DAB's goals of empowering veterans to lead high-quality lives with respect and dignity. Therefore, the Office of Historic Resources recommends that the Cultural Heritage Commission declare the property an historic cultural monument and adopt the staff report and findings. Thank you, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Max? All right, I believe the DAB would like to make a presentation. Sir, how much time do you need?
10 minutes.
Okay.
President. Robert Graves, for the record, Commission. Thank you for your time, President Milofsky, my fellow Matador and Trojan. I'm Robert Graves. I'm the Director of Operations for DAB California. I'm here to present, as you see, the cultural heritage, the withdrawal request of the request just made by Mr. Max. All right. As you heard, our mission is to empower veterans to live high-quality lives with respect and dignity, and we do this by 3 elements. We connect veterans to...
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you talk a little more slowly?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. As you heard, our mission statement is to empower veterans to live high-quality lives with respect and dignity. And we do that with 3 breads and butters. 1, we connect our veterans to their and their families and survivors of the veterans to service-related benefits. We provide transportation to and from veterans' homes with what we call the Veteran Transportation Network for free of charge. And we fight legislation for veterans, for the benefits of veterans, such as the PACT Act and what you might know as Operation Blue Water. The purpose of my presentation today is the rebuttal points submitted to the Commission support the reasons DAB California and DAB National Organization do not support the historic designation for the former Disabled American Veterans Birmingham Hospital 73 building. Here is the timeline of events. March 28th of 2022, DAB California Chapter 73, Woodland Hills was suspended. May 31st, 22, the chapter's charter was revoked. June 22nd, 2022, the Patriots for 73, which is the group that was created after the suspension had been made, they submitted a request to present evidence against the revocation to the national organization. August 2nd, 2022, the members of Patriots for 73 filed a quiet claim deed for transfer of property title into their name. August 5th, 2022, members from DAB California 73 were a no-show for the article hearing against the revocation. August 10th, the DAB National Office sent out a notice of revocation. And then March 7th, the historical cultural monument application was submitted. These are all referenced into the document that was sent out, CHC 23-611, as you can see on the screen. And I've noticed I've hit all the pages that have our rebuttals on them. On page 4 of that document, the line that 73 played an important role in rehabilitation. Our rebuttal is that 73 never played a role in any rehabilitation activity, although they state that there were rehabilitation opportunities. It was never a rehabilitation center. Rehabilitation goes against our federally issued charter by U.S. Congress that requires that we support VA-funded programming that enhances veteran benefits and advocacy, sanctified by our Constitution and bylaws of the DAB National Organization. Second point, all accomplishments that were provided as substance to maintain historical determination are successes by DAB National and not the chapter itself. Third, all stats provided just recently are national organization statistics. On page 7, there are lines that say for its association with the disabled American veterans at a national organization, and the subject property played an important role in rehabilitation. Again, the rebuttals. The organization never held a rehabilitation status. It was considered a recreational clubhouse, as noted on the article that you see down here. Also, it's in the back of the submission. Clubhouse permitted asked. A hearing will be conducted on April 21st to allow construction of a clubhouse and recreation center, not a rehabilitation center. DAB National is absolutely, it's right. It's absolutely not in support of the historical cultural monument recognition. Page 66, under chapter activities, and this is all, again, the submission document. Our rebuttal is that the chapter activities that were submitted in support of the community effort were all initiated after the suspension of the chapter on March 28th, 2022. On page 68, the letter of appreciation from New Directions, the rebuttal again, to support the historical cultural monument push, letters such as this letter on page 17 or 68 from New Directions was conjured up to embellish an appearance of a functional chapter. In this instance, members of 73 did not pay from donated funds nor work on the product. It only allowed itself to be a conduit for network connections, so the restaurant could use donated soups as a tax write-off. Rare opportunities to be of service do not give tolerance to decades of abuse and misconduct. Page 78, applicable historical cultural monument criteria are, it says, is identified with important events of national, state, or local history and exemplifies significant contributions to broad cultural, economic, or social history of the nation, state, or community. DAB National's rebuttal is that their application submitted was based on significant involvement with the national organization. The charter did not come into effect till 1950 and has not shown to use the money that they generated for the mission of the DAB. On page 79, the property owner, on the application of 73, Chapter 73 recognized Disabled American Veterans National Organization as the indicated owner of the building. Since DAB National is the owner in line with the DAB National Constitution and bylaws shown on the right, suspension and revocation of charters, The property would be given to the DAV Department of California following the charter revocation. According to Chapter 73 bylaws, underneath, you can see that the chapter recognizes that the national organization known as DAV, incorporated by the Act of Commerce, shows that upon dissolution of the chapter, the assets remaining after the payment of its debts shall be distributed as provided in Article 6.4 in the national bylaws. Page 80, release. I acknowledge that I have the right to submit or have obtained the appropriate permission to submit all information contained in this application. Max Loader is not an authority of either the DAV Department of California nor the DAV National Organization and has not been given appropriate permissions to act of any sort. The second bullet point, nobody individually or collectively has the authority to file with the CHC in the name of DAV Chapter 73. On page 86, from its opening up into its closure, Chapter 73 used its site as a community center. It raised money by opening doors to its public, renting out its land and facilities for various local groups. Our rebuttals are, it must be stated that the money raised from these community rentals never went to DAV hosted programs. In fact, an audit determining money had been stolen for over a decade is one of the main reasons that the charter had been revoked. Unaffiliated events were a disturbance to the community, including racing on the street, porn shoots, shootings at the site resulting in SWAT standoffs, renting out of unzoned trailers, which were cited by the city and never complied with, and unaffiliated parties, which included the opening of the bar during the COVID-19 shutdown. As far back as 1954, as you can see on the right, it has been acknowledged that raised funds went directly to the clubhouse instead of veteran programs. In conclusion, we feel that this is a fraudulent application with inaccurate information and misstatements. It is important to reiterate that this submission of a historical cultural monument push was created after the suspension of Chapter 73. The true owner is not in agreement of designation of the building as a historical cultural monument, nor are we the applicant. Currently, we are in a legal entanglement of who is the rightful owner of the property, but the intention of the organization is to build out housing that will benefit low-income veteran families, which will ultimately bring in more revenue and tax money to our district. I say our district because that is my chapter. I was a member of that chapter for 7 years prior to any of this happening. Fortunately, I get to be the director of operations of the organization, but rules are rules, and what happened to make this chapter get suspended, it's a part of the bylaws and we have to abide by the rules. Our ask as DAV is to deny the submission regarding the formal chapter's request to become a historical cultural monument. Thank you.
If nothing else, I'm impressed by your timing. I wish many other presenters would be as diligent as you were. Any questions, commissioners? Richard?
I'm a little confused. Can you, in a sort of brief statement, say what it is that you're after?
Commissioner, I represent DAV California and DAV National. DAV does not want this site to be a historical monument. We would like the application to be pulled. The site itself had there was no authority to go this route, because once the chapter itself went in suspension and then revocation, everything according to the bylaws and constitution of DAV, that the site belongs to DAV. Now, Max Loader submitted this application and it's not a representation of DAV. His name is on the documentation, but the documentation also acknowledges disabled American veterans as the rightful owner. So disabled American veterans did not submit this. This was submitted by a third party who's not a DAV representative, we would like the submission pulled.
Commissioners, if I may just interrupt on that point. Thank you again, Ken Bernstein with Office of Historic Resources. Just to reiterate, this nomination was not submitted by Mr. Loader of our office. This was initiated by the City Council. There was a council motion introduced by Councilmember Bob Blumenfield and adopted by the full City Council. So this is formally a council-initiated nomination. It can't be withdrawn at this point as a result of that, per the request. The commission has the obligation to act on the nomination on its merits. If the nomination is not recommended by this commission, it still will go back to the City Council for final consideration. It would take 10 votes of the council rather than 8 votes in order to approve it. But this was a council-initiated nomination initiated by Council District 3.
So,
Thank you. President, may I?
Can you clarify who owns this property?
Is that a question to me, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir. The DAV National owns this property. Again, according to this timeline, as I re-put up here, the charter was revoked May 31st of 2022. August 2nd, there was a quiet claim deed which transferred the title from whomever was on that title initially to Jerry Watts.
Yeah.
Then that was a few days prior to them supposing to have showed up for their trial in Tampa, Florida that same August. They never showed, and then when we came back, we found out that the deed had been changed over. But according to our Constitution and bylaws, both national and again, if I can move forward here, on our rebuttal, the bylaws, according to DAV National, upon revocation of a charter of any chapter or county or district council where no state departments exist, or upon revocation of any charter of a state department, all property, money, and effects of said state department, chapter, or county or district council shall revert to the national organization, there to be held in trust for 18 months in the event the State Department, chapter or county or district council's charter is not reissued within the 18-month period. The said property, money, and effects shall become the absolute property of the national organization. Disposition of assets of units of the DAB auxiliary are controlled by the appropriate provisions of the Constitution bylaws. And then the bylaws of Chapter 73 itself. This chapter recognizes the national organization known as the Disabled American Veterans Incorporated by Act of Congress and affirms its allegiance and subordination to the national organization, its constitution, bylaws, and all rules, mandates, and regulations promulgated pursuant thereto. Upon dissolution of the chapter, the assets remaining after the payment of its debts shall be distributed as provided in Article 6, Section 6.4, Paragraph 5 and 6 of the national bylaws. And Mr. Commissioner, may I also just make comment to Mr. Ken Bernstein that the application has a signature on there of Max Loaders. And Max Loader, again, I acknowledge I have the right to submit or have attained the appropriate permission to submit all information contained in this application according to on page 79 on the application, recognizing the Disabled American Veterans National Organization as the indicated owner of the building.
Okay.
With our address.
Excuse me, I think whatever internal issue may exist between the national and local chapters is not in the purview of this commission. We're here to express an opinion on whether DAV in this building over the course of time is significant in terms of the history and context of the city of Los Angeles. Your internal issues are between you, the national and the local chapters or lack of chapters. that is not part of what we're here to discuss. Max Lowther is representative of the city of Los Angeles, who in fact made the nomination, the city council member, and I assume the information which he was able to obtain in his presentation was all matter of public record.
It was all based off of the national statistics of Mr. President.
I think at this point, the internal issues that you have are not part of our deliberation.
Mr. President, you're addressing internal issues as a national. We're saying that the McDonald's on Sepulveda has the historical components of McDonald's National. That's what we're saying with this conversation right now. That chapter cannot use the statistics from the national organization to support its push for a historical commission.
I think part of the underlying thought in this designation or nomination is the importance of DAV as a national organization, not just this particular chapter. What I'd like to do at this point is open this for public comment. John?
Don Jefferson, City Planning. For item number 6 on the agenda, we'd like to give public comment dialed in telephonically. Please press star 9 at this time. When prompted, press star 6 to unmute yourself. If you've logged in via Zoom, please use the raise hand button and you will have 1 minute. Seeing none, Commission President.
Okay. All right. Seeing there are no public comment, let's close public comment. Commissioners, who went on the tour of this facility? Richard, Diane?
No,
Okay.
I didn't know.
Okay. Diane? Your observations? Thoughts?
I don't know, it seems kind of ludicrous to me, the idea that there were no rehabilitation efforts being made when we could see the swimming pool. We could see the bays where cars were worked on. I mean, that was one effort evidently, was to teach the veterans a skill in working on cars. Seemed very much to me like it was rehabilitation was going on there. And it's a very nice, large piece of property. Evidently, there's been a number of subdivisions over time. So there's, it's only, I think, 4 acres now, as opposed to 30-some acres. But I think it's very much an example of what the disabled American veterans were doing for their members. It was a local chapter, and it's hard to see it go in that use, but the national organization will not be prohibited from making changes to it in the future if this is given a designation. So I hate to see you fighting it, but
I hate to see me fighting it, Miss. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to address you directly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Lucy Atwood, City Attorney, the public hearing is closed, so there's no more testimony.
Thank you, Lucy.
And typically, just as a reminder, we usually have members of the public take a seat, including owners, once the public hearing is closed. It's been a while since we've done this in person, so.
It's been a while since we've been here. It's been a while since we actually had public hearing.
Exactly.
Public at the hearing, so if you could take a seat. I think this is obviously an important facility in terms of DAV and its rehabilitation, if that's the right word, efforts in Southern California and in Los Angeles. I think there are parts of this building which may or may not be as significant as others, so that whatever happens, even though we do designate an entire site, entire complex, I think staff would recognize the latitude of some areas being more or less important than others in terms of any reuse that national or local or whatever chapter or owner has envisioned in the future. Other commissioners, thoughts?
Yeah, we're here as the Cultural Heritage Commission, and if it rises to the level of the criteria, then our obligation is to recommend the designation. We're not saying that the use of the property is part of that designation. We just heard the example of the LA Times, which is a newspaper operations that's been adaptively will be reused for other uses. So I don't see anything that in our, if we vote to designate this property, that would prevent it from the DAV or anyone else from operating it, developing any other use. And I have to defend Max Sloter. Please don't get on Max. This was not his application. He's working for on behalf of the city. So that's my opinion on the designation. Yeah.
And I think the other aspect of this, even though the word rehabilitation was part of the nomination, I'm not sure that rehabilitation is the sole source of its importance. I think it's the whole activity of the DAV, its place in the nation, and its place in the history and the evolution of that part of the city that's important. Do I have a motion? Commissioner?
This is Commissioner Canner, and I move that we recognize the Disabled American Veterans Birmingham Hospital Chapter 73 as a historic cultural monument. It's located at 6543 to 6585 North Corbin Avenue. So I recommend that we adopt the staff report and move this nomination ahead.
Do I have a second?
It's Commissioner Kennard, I second.
Linda?
Linda Liu for the record. Commissioner Canner?
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Kennard?
Yes.
Commissioner Barron?
Yes.
Commissioner Buelna?
Yes.
And Commissioner President Malofsky.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, I'd like to take a 5-minute break before you hear the coordinator agenda. So we should reconvene at 5:12.
12:05, you mean? 5:00.
The recording has stopped.
it becomes branded.
This meeting is being recorded.
I think it's sort of a game. He's a terrier.
Richard? Good. Ready to come back?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It's 11:57. We're reconvening. Item number 7 is the proposed monument Cornet Theater building. Remember?
Yes, good morning again, or good afternoon, Commissioners. This is the nomination for the Cornet Theater building located at 362 to 372 and a half North La Cienega Boulevard. Staff recommendation is that the Commission take the property under consideration and adopt the staff report findings, and Honor Dunn is here to present the nomination.
Honor, how much time do you need?
If I could have 12 to be on the safe side, that'd be great. Thank you.
Give her 13. Wait, we'll see.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Honor Dunn, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Honor Dunn, and I'm thrilled to be here to present the Cornet Theater Building's Historic Cultural Monument nomination. I'd like to thank the Cultural Heritage Commissioners and the Office of Historic Resources for providing me with the time and space to share parts of its powerful history. The Cornet Theater building meets HCM Criterion 1 as it is significant as a venue important to the development of performing arts in Los Angeles and as a venue for art, experimental film, and live performances. Specifically, it has significance in post-war entertainment history, women's history, and entrepreneurship, and LGBTQ+ safe spaces. The period of significance is 1947 to the mid-1960s. It is essential to acknowledge the woman behind its creation, Frida Berghoff Gellis. Joining her in this remarkable lineage are her mother, Betty Berghoff, and her daughter, Petri Gellis Roby, forming 3 generations of visionary women. These 3 women played a role in shaping not only the Cornet Theater building, but their dedication to artistic expression left an enduring impact on the cultural landscape of Los Angeles. Betty Berghoff, a Jewish Russian immigrant, assumed full responsibility of her 4 children after her husband tragically passed away on stage when Frida was just a young girl. Undeterred by the challenges she faced, Betty managed the family vaudeville troupe and went on to establish numerous successful businesses in the Beverly Fairfax area, including multiple movie theaters and the Russian nightclub Berghoff Balalaika. There's supposed to be a video here. From a young age, Frida Berghoff Gellis dedicated herself to the world of entertainment as a traveling vaudeville performer along her family troupe. After retiring from the stage, Frida commissioned, built, and managed the Cornet Theater building for over 4 decades. In 1969, she was awarded with a resolution from the City of Los Angeles for her contribution to the culture of the city. Petri Gellis Roby, Frida's daughter, continued the family tradition of entrepreneurship with her own unique spirit. A woman of diverse talents, Petri's dynamic life unfolded as a dancer, actress, sound artist, radio producer, and businesswoman. Working alongside her mother, Petri played a vital role in the operations of the Cornet Theater building and eventually took sole ownership after Frida's passing. In 1942, Frida Berghoff Gellis began the process to build an entertainment complex on the corner of North La Cienega Boulevard and Oakwood Avenue, 2 blocks north of Beverly Boulevard. She commissioned Lyle Nelson Barcoon, experienced theater architect, to build what would eventually be named the Cornet Theater building. The streamlined modern meets late modern building was completed and opened to the public in 1947. The smooth stucco building has a rectangular footprint with rounded corners and a wraparound windows. It possesses several other architectural defining features that make it distinct, including an integrated pylon sign, which not only serves as the marquee at street level, but also displays the Cornet Theater signage. Nestled within the complex and accessed by a walkway entrance from La Cienega is a brick paved courtyard serving as the heart of the building. This central space acts as a hub, providing access to various areas within the complex, including the theater and the staircase upstairs. Built to house the 272-seat stage theater and cinema, a smaller performance space known as the Little Theater, multiple storefronts, second floor offices, and a dance rehearsal studio. From 1957 to 1961, the smaller performance space known as the Little Theater was home to Doug Weston's original troubadour. Weston is considered responsible for promoting many successful singer-songwriters in the early stages of their careers, such as Elton John, Van Morrison, Carole King, and the Eagles, name a few. The legacy of the Cornet Theater building is associated with innovation in Los Angeles post-war entertainment history. In this era, the performing arts industry was challenged to set itself apart from television, motion pictures, and radio. The Cornet Theater and its programming was an amplification of that innovation in a creative offering for the community. Due to time restraints today, I will only be presenting on a few markers of its significant history. In 1947, actor and producer John Houseman leased the Cornet Theater and formed Pelican Productions to bring legitimate theater to Los Angeles. His second production there was Bertolt Brecht's English adaptation of Galileo, starring Charles Laughton. Bertolt Brecht was a revolutionary and influential theater practitioner who challenged the traditional norms of theater through his unique methods and rejection of mainstream naturalism. His approach, known as epic theater, had a profound impact on the craft and earned Brecht the reputation as one of the most important figures in 20th century theater. Charles Laughton at the time was considered one of the world's most admired stage and screen actors. He was not only casted as the male lead, but he was also Bertolt Brecht's collaborator in the translation and adaptation. For over 18 months, Brecht and Laughton worked together in a relentless process of translating the original script from German to an English modern adaptation. On July 30th, 1947, a sold-out crowd, including Charlie Chaplin, Ingrid Bergman, and Frank Lloyd Wright, filled the theater for a debut performance of Galileo. Galileo is considered one of Brecht's most significant plays as it explores controversial topics such as social responsibility of scientists, progress versus tradition, and freedom of thought and speech. Fast forward to 1964, when Ray Bradbury, famed and influential science fiction and fantastical writer and author of Fahrenheit 51, leased the Cornet Theater for his newly created repertory company devoted exclusively to science fiction theater. Bradbury hired John Whitney, sound technician and the father of computer animation, and Saul Bass, a renowned graphic designer, as consultants to create new and experimental electronic effects. They used the pre-existing movie projection system to create floating images on parts of the stage to support the dramatic scene. Whitney also developed electronic stimulations of human voices, animal cries, and a gender-neutral electronic voice to enhance the futuristic storytelling. The Cornet Theater also had a strong presence in the city as an art house cinema. When the theater first opened in 1947, it hosted a midnight screening of Kenneth Anger's groundbreaking debut homoerotic film, Fireworks. Fireworks was created when Anger was only 17 and is considered one of the earliest portrayals of homoeroticism on film. The screening was organized by Creative Film Associates, a film society formed by Anger and Curtis Harrington. Also in 1947, the Cornet Theater became home of Paul Ballard's influential venture, the Hollywood Film Society. Ballard was recognized as a key figure in curating Los Angeles' post-war avant-garde scene and dedicated himself to presenting film as a form of art. In 1950, Raymond Rohauer, curator of the Society of Cinema Arts, took over the theater from Ballard and branded it the Cornet Louvre. Rohauer's programming encompassed daily screenings of classics, experimental works, foreign films, and art cinema. On October 11, 1957, the Cornet Theater building was raided and Rohauer was arrested by the Los Angeles Police Department Vice Squad on obscenity charges for screening John E. Schmidt's film Voices and Kenneth Anger's film Fireworks. While the arrest seemingly was due to a fleeting glimpse of female nudity in Voices, it was Fireworks' homoeroticism that drew the most outrage. The ensuing trial revealed that the Los Angeles Police Department's motivation extended beyond the content of Fireworks and was entwined with the Cornet Theater's standing as a safe space for the gay community, with the prosecutor focusing much of his case on the theater and its gay patrons. By the time Rohauer faced arrest for screening Anger's film Fireworks, the Cornet Theater was known as a longtime center for gay entertainment that served as a vital space for connection, shared experiences, and cultural expression during a time when such opportunities were limited and scarce. On February 1958, Rohauer was found guilty. However, civil rights attorney Stanley Fleshman appealed the decision to the California Supreme Court, which ruled in favor of Rohauer. The court affirmed that homosexuality was a legitimate subject for artistic expression, firmly establishing that explicit reference to it could not be deemed obscene. This ruling became a landmark decision for freedom of speech in the U.S. Today, the Cornet Theater building stands with its integrity intact. It remains a place where people come together, fostering community and shared experience. The Largo at the Cornet, the current tenants, have kept the spirit of the venue alive by hosting live music and comedy shows, providing a platform for artists and entertainers to showcase and explore their talent. The Cornet Theater building holds significant meaning in present day as a physical representation of Los Angeles' art and cultural history. It stands as a testament to the woman who built it and the people who worked and performed within its walls, carrying their stories. By designating the Cornet Theater, we ensure that these stories endure, inspiring future generations and continuing to shape the performing arts landscape. By honoring its historical value, we pay homage to its creative pioneers, their bold artistic expression, and its progressive history. From 1947 to 2008, the Cornet Theater building was owned and managed by women, and although we didn't have time to explore events under Petri Gellis-Roby, Deborah Dupree, and Gigi Pritzker's leadership, I would like to acknowledge their contribution to the development of performing arts in Los Angeles by prioritizing creative exploration and expression. Women's roles in shaping communities have often been overlooked and undervalued, and it is vital to recognize and honor their legacies within history.
Thank you for a very thorough and informative presentation. Commissioners, any questions? Okay. Does the owner wish to make a presentation, Lambert?
We've not heard from the owner. Don't know if they're here.
Okay, let's open public comment. First, we'll hear from people in the room. Chloe Dunn, Freya McAllister, and Megan Sant. If you'd like to come up, and you'll have 1 minute each to make your comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, please state your name first.
My name is Chloe Dunn. So I am 16 years old and I was born in Los Angeles as a 5th generation Angelino. And thank you for the opportunity to comment on the Cornet Theater's building's nomination. Preserving the Cornet Theater ensures that future generations can appreciate and learn from its rich history. The theater has been a venue for numerous avant-garde performances and important events, making it a unique cultural landmark. Having historical buildings like the Cornet Theater available for exploration and research is vital for young adults and teenagers. These spaces offer opportunities for learning about the past, understanding the evolution of art and culture, and gaining a deeper appreciation for historical legacies. By preserving the Cornet Theater, the city provides a tangible connection to the past, allowing younger generations to understand Los Angeles' cultural heritage. By designating the Cornet Theater as an HCM, the city ensures the continuation of cultural and artistic experiences in the present and the future.
You guys are good.
Hi there. Thank you for having us. My name is Megan Sant. I'm a local artist here in Los Angeles, and I support this nomination. Only 3% of HCMs are designated to the history of women. By diversifying the designation of historically significant sites, we create a more inclusive narrative that is a true reflection of Los Angeles. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My name is Friar McAllister. I also just want to acknowledge the mindful attention and care of this commission, and it's a privilege to be able to address you. I came to Los Angeles in 1994 to serve as the general manager for the Cornet Theater in partnership with producer James B. Freitberg. This theater had languished for some time, and I'd like to think that our brief tenure there revitalized this space and actually brought it back to life as a viable commercial operation that was regularly programmed and